before the pandemic, multifamily, pretty much all the markets, rent growth is positive for 7, 8 years. And now post-pandemic, suddenly, there's a big divergence. Some metros are doing better than others. Some are negative. Some are still positive. Everybody's down, but some are still positive. Some went to the negative territory. So, what is the causing that? And we ran some numbers to do with, occupancies and demand and absorption. But the one thing that was expense, right? So the more expensive the market was, the worse they did in terms of rent growth. The cheaper the market was, the better it did. So
expense measured by
average rent, right? By the
average rent, not the relationship between rent and income.
Just the average rent, right?
Okay.
And so Las Vegas lost, they lost a greater percent of jobs than any other metro in the U.S., but their rent growth was positive. The second worst metro in terms of losing jobs was New York City. And this is between March and September. And, they were minus like 8% or something like that for rent. So when we looked at what the correlation was, the biggest factor was all the most expensive markets were pretty much the worst markets in terms of rent growth. And even so, there was a stronger correlation between that. Now, there were pretty strong correlations to other things, like you said, but the strongest correlation for anything was just expense. And when you think about it, it makes sense that, we're at a period where there's, a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people have lost jobs, and most of the people who've lost jobs are mostly, kind of on the lower end of the economic scale. So there's a lot of more, budget conscious renters out there. Once there's a vaccine, it'll come back. When people feel safe, I think they'll eventually move back because, I think that's what people want out of life, right? Even, the two big drivers of demand in the urban areas were sort of the millennials, but also the baby boomers, the retirees who, they don't need, the 4-bedroom houses after their kids moved out. So, and they didn't want to just, go to Sarasota where there's nothing to do. So they're renting, they might be selling their houses and renting a place in downtown Boston or, downtown, San Francisco, because there's things to do and they're not ready to just kick the, sit back and spend the rest of their lives sitting on the beach or something.